you are interested in any of our programs. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the E4Impact Foundation for you. That is, if you're joining us today for the first time, we welcome you and we thank you, and we hope you have lots of questions. You can upload your questions in the chat box as our speaker is speaking. I will take a moment to allow him to answer a few questions, but we will have a full question and answer session in the last 15 minutes of the hour. So let me introduce our speaker today for those maybe who didn't join us last week. Mr. Dode is a Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Trade Academy. It's a Pan-African organization building capacity of Africa's public and private sector to take advantage of the national, regional, continental, and global trade opportunities. He has 15 years experience spanning in trade policy and investment promotion, trade facilitation, private sector development, agribusiness finance, market, project planning, and development communications. He's an experienced trainer, facilitator, moderator, who has worked in Ghana, Ethiopia, Malawi, and in the SACU region, and has shown keen interest on how to take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement and other international agreements. So we welcome him and hope to learn a lot from his experience, where he has also worked with the World Bank and has quite a postgraduate diploma from the Ghana Institute of Management in Business Administration and a bachelor's in economics. We welcome you, and we are very excited to once again have you, and we hope you are well.
Yes, I am well, Bertha. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening. Greetings to everybody who managed to join our webinar today. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, good evening, greetings from Accra, Ghana to our distinguished participants.
We can't hear you.
Thank you, Bertha, for the introduction. And can you hear me? Is there a way I can get a sign from?
Oh, okay, all right. Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I think, like you mentioned the last time, we had a full discussion on the AfCFTA, and there was a request from participants to have a second one. Today, I'm going to recast some of the things we presented last week and add some elements that will be very important for entrepreneurs and investors who are looking at Africa broadly. So just as a recap, the last time we looked at two main background to the establishment of the AfCFTA. The first one was from a historical perspective. We looked at the journey from the 1960s when the OAU was established all the way to the period where we saw the establishment of regional economic communities and integration at regional economic community levels. We remind ourselves that there were 8 recognized regional economic bodies, which are the foundation blocks for a lot of the integration work going on in Africa. Then we look at the perspective of intra-Africa trade. What is the status of intra-Africa trade? And that's what I'm trying to remind you of right now. So even though for years we've managed to integrate through regional economic communities, intra-Africa trade is largely low. It stood around 17–18%, compared with 59% in Asia and 69% in Europe. And then, of course, we have high levels of non-tariff barriers as well amongst ourselves. Average tariffs for non-African partners is estimated at 6.3%. So it seems that there is a lower tariff we apply to non-African countries that African countries trade with than between African countries. So African countries, average tariffs stands at around 11.3%. Even though level of trade is low and tariffs are high, there was still observed that a lot of the trade in between African countries was in diversified and value-added goods. And like I mentioned, a lot of the trade is going on between the regional economic community. So within each reg, there is a lot of trade going on. So if you take maybe EAC or SADC or ECOWAS or the COMESA region, you see more trade happening among COMESA members than between, let's say, COMESA and EAC or COMESA and ECOWAS. And last but not the least, there are also other challenges that intra-Africa trade face. For example, there's high levels of informal trade going on, small-scale informal cross-border trading. The quality of logistics connectivity within the continent is quite low, limited availability of and access to trade finance, difference in business environment, variations in currency, and all of these things constrain the level of intra-Africa trade. So the solution from the perspective of the AfCFTA is to say, let's create a single market for goods and services. Let's remove all the barriers that exist between us in terms of border demarcations to create a single market for goods and services. At the same time, let's also reduce or eliminate real and imaginary barriers to trade between and amongst African countries and the regional blocs. So that was the key intention for establishing the AfCFTA, and of course, address other barriers to trade and investment on the continent. So again, just to recap, what is the AfCFTA? It is a free trade area. And the last time we established that a free trade area is just the first stage of many steps when it comes to regional and continental integration. When you establish a free trade area amongst countries, the idea is that those countries would trade amongst themselves at preferential tariffs, at reduced tariffs. So the AfCFTA is a preferential trade agreement as we speak between 54 out of 55 African Union nations. And we all know that it opens up a market of 1.3 billion people with a GDP of $3.4 trillion. And of course, is the largest trading area in the world in terms of geography and the number of participating countries. And came into force from the signing of it in 2018 March, entered into force in May 2019, and official trading started in 2021 January. The AfCFTA has, for me, two main issues it's addressing. The first one is the tariffs between African countries. Remember, I mentioned that average tariffs was standing at around 11.3%. So how do you reduce average tariffs amongst African countries when it comes to trading? That's the first thing. Then the second thing is to address the numerous non-tariff barriers that exist amongst African countries. Of course, tariffs and non-tariff barriers goes with trading goods. Then you have the objective to address the issue of liberalization of trading services. So service provision and services could also be traded. Then the objective is to cooperate on investment, intellectual property rights, and competition policy. So these three areas are very supportive of the first two. The first two being trading goods and trading services, accompanied by investment facilitation, investment promotion, sustainable investment, supported by competition policy, creating a level playing field for actors in the sector to be able to invest and conduct business. And then, of course, protect intellectual property, creations of the mind. And I think subsequently I will deal with some aspects of that. So long story short, these are the main objectives of the AfCFTA that was established. So to achieve these, the AfCFTA has 8 main protocols, 8 protocols with its associated annexes. So we're talking about protocol on trading goods, protocol on trading services, protocol on the rules and procedures for the settlement of disputes. And this is envisaged because for us to trade, we do anticipate that there's going to be disputes arising from people omittedly out of commission, reneging on their obligations or responsibilities under the agreement. I've mentioned investments, protocol on the intellectual property rights, protocol competition policy, digital trade, women, youth, and SMEs. So these are the protocols that is expected to drive the AfCFTA's implementation. So yes, it's important to know that 46 countries out of 54 have ratified the agreement. And I think the last time I clarified the fact that if a country has not ratified, we do not expect them to have any obligations or obtain benefits of the AfCFTA. So those 8 countries that are yet to ratify we do not expect them to participate or benefit from the AfCFTA. And here are the 46 countries. It is important for you to know them and understand it, because these are the countries you can export to or import from under the AfCFTA. Now, we are not saying you cannot import or export to African countries. Trade is going on between African countries anyway. The AfCFTA is to make it easier, is to make it less expensive when it comes to duties and non-tariff barriers. So, protocol on trading goods, very important, because that is the protocol that has been largely negotiated, largely maybe aspects agreed, and implementation has been underway. So here we're looking at, again, elimination of tariffs and non-tariff barriers, dealing with customs, trade facilitation, development of regional and continental value chains, addressing issues when it comes to technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and things like that. So we discussed last week that the tariffs have been reduced or are being reduced. And for you to be able to participate as an entrepreneur or a business person in Africa, you need to understand how the tariffs are being reduced. We said that tariffs are being reduced over a period of 5 to 10 years, depending on the country's classification, either as a least developed country or a non-least developed country. So if you are a least developed country, then your tariff reduction is expected to happen over 10 years. And if you're a non-least developed country, it's expected to be done over 5 years. Now, it is important for us to understand this in the context of trying to take advantage of the AfCFTA, because if the product you are intending to export is categorized for liberalization, it looks advantageous. It will be advantageous to you to export that product. If that product is not listed for liberalization, which is based on the slide you're seeing, the category A, B, and C, if it's a category B or C, then most likely you're going to meet a higher tariff, which means that you may have to consider the competitiveness of your product when it enters that market. So it is very, very important. So for countries to be able to trade under the AfCFTA, they need to share or exchange their tariff offers. And these 34 countries have submitted and had their tariff offers technically verified, which means that they followed this formula of 90% being category A that are eligible, that are being reduced, tariffs have been reduced on. Category B, tariff reduction will happen from year 6 to 10, and then for category C, those are excluded and tariff reductions are not anticipated. Now, we're also looking at rules of origin, because for products to cross borders, there needed to be a way by which the customs authorities will be able to establish where it was manufactured. So in the AfCFTA, the 2 main origin criteria applies. A product is either wholly obtained or substantially transformed, or substantially processed, or processing that is duly qualified. Now, we say wholly obtained for products which are usually naturally occurring, born and raised in a country, or extracted from a single country. In the wholly obtained criteria, the key thing here is that the product must be coming from a single country. The product and its constituents must be coming from a single country. Very important. So here we're looking at agricultural products, livestock, we're looking at natural oils, anything extracted from the ground. It also includes waste and scrap products coming from out of manufacturing. So those businesses that are into green, recycling, and things like that, you stand the opportunity to export those products as wholly obtained. Now, when it comes to sustainable transformation, I'll just focus on the two main ones, criteria that is good for you to understand to be able to help you, which is that you need, you either need to establish that the percentage of material imported outside of your country and outside of the states parties of the AfCFTA is not more than 60%. Okay, so if you are importing from any continent outside of Africa into your country for processing, we expect that that product or those products imports should not be more than 60% of value, which is also the flip side. The flip side is that the total percentage local value added should not be less than 40%. So 60-40. If it's imported for value addition, it shouldn't be more than 60%. And the local value added should not be less than 40%. So somebody will ask the question, why is this important? It's important because we know that not every product that will be sold within the AfCFTA would be wholly obtained. We would import some inputs, we would import some parts, we would import some additives, whatever, to add and convert into the total product, the final product. And that conversion was anticipated. So there is a room for you to import from other African countries, sorry, from other parts of the world for inclusion in your product manufacture. Now, the other elements of the rules of origin I would like to mention is that, yes, what I've just described is the general explanation, but AfCFTA rules of origin are characterized or clearly stated in the Appendix 4 of the Annex 2 to the Protocol on Trading Goods, which deals with the rules of origin. So those products listed there, so we follow what we call product-specific rules of origin. So whilst I've said this, you need to know the specific rule based on the HS classification of your product, the harmonized code system for your product. The second thing is that not every process, not every manufacturing would be considered as qualifying, even if you undertake them when it comes to exporting product. We call those non-qualifying operations. So certain operations like simple labeling, simple packaging, rebagging, those operations will not qualify as originating products from your country. What it means is that if you are involved in such activity, you will not be able to present those products as AfCFTA eligible products. The third thing is that the rules of origin allows states parties to source raw materials and semi-finished products from other AfCFTA countries for final processing. So assuming I import, let's say, meat products from Kenya into Nigeria for canning, processing, which leads to me canning it and now wanting to export it. Because Kenya is an AfCFTA state party and Nigeria is an AfCFTA state party, the product that will be presented for export would now be a made in Nigeria product. And that is based on the principle of cumulation. And then once your product is made, you need to prove origin of the product. And origin proof is required when the product is being exported or imported. And that process, you need to contact the designated competent authority of your country. In some countries, the authority that issues the rules of origin, sorry, the certificate of origin would be the customs, would be the Chamber of Commerce, could be the Ministry of Trade, or any other institution that the state, your country has designated. Take note of that and get to utilize them. Now, based on the AfCFTA provisions, what are the opportunities that the AfCFTA presents? And here we're talking about maximizing the opportunity. So first of all, reduction of duties is expected under the AfCFTA. So tariffs on intra-Africa trade will be gradually reduced to zero over the 5 to 10 year period from 2021. So as we speak, those countries that have ratified would be in their third year of tariff reduction. Yes, there's going to be elimination of non-tariff barriers, which is being fully addressed. You have a big market access, about 1.3 billion people that your product could reach. It gives you, the business, the opportunity to participate in regional and continental value chains. And I think I mentioned that the last time. You don't need to be the person who makes the total product that you make. You can make a component, you can make a part, you can be involved in the making or production of a specific product. So let's say, for example, maybe you are involved in extraction of palm oil, and palm oil may go into the making of soaps, cooking oil and things like that. You don't have to be the one cultivating the palm oil, harvesting the palm oil, extracting the palm oil, and now making the soap. You can probably be just one of the actors, specialized and take advantage of economies of scale. Within the AfCFTA, the protocols on investment in particular, employees of business will have free movement of people, because through investments you are eligible for obtaining movement and permits across other countries. Then, of course, there's a continental framework for investment protection, intellectual property rights, and competition policy. Then also we have framework of capital and a dispute settlement mechanism. These are the 6 key benefits or opportunities presented by the AfCFTA from the legal text. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but usually I like to tell people how to practically export. So here you need to have a registered business. If you don't have a registered business, don't think you can export, because exporting usually requires a registered entity. Or have an exportable product. The product you are intending to export should be exportable. I define Africa Trade Academy defines an exportable product to be a product which has been developed with international clients in view and will be sold at a competitive price. So yes, you may have a product which is doing well in your country, in your hometown. That is fantastic. But when it is going to go international, it needs to have all the characteristics, labeling characteristics, language characteristics, packaging, all of that should be considered. You must register with your national authorities, because many products that are going to the international trade must satisfy requirements of Food and Drugs authorities or standards authorities or standards bureau, those institutions that give the product the needed credibility. Then please do your market research. Yes, we are speaking about AfCFTA. We're talking about markets in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Ethiopia, several African countries. But let's not assume. You need to understand the market you're going into, how to get into the market. You need to understand that. Please get buyers, get actual buyers. Before you move your product, make sure you have a buyer contract, somebody who is buying the product from you. Then please identify how your products will get to your market. Yes, will it go by road? Will it go by rail? Will it go by air? Will it go by sea? Look at that, look at the options. What will be the competitive advantage of using each of them? Then understand that you need to know what other barriers could come up. Now, trade barriers, some of which are legitimate, must be understood and complied with. So for example, if you do a skincare product and that product is of course used by people in your country, is certified by your country's pharmaceutical organization, it doesn't mean that other Africans can use it just like that. We need to be able to find out if it will be beneficial or healthy for other skins, and you need to understand it. So if you don't understand that, then you may meet challenges at the border. Obtain a certificate of origin. We mentioned that the goods must move with the necessary documents. And once you have the documents, you put it together, you present your product, and you can export. There is a means by which you can obtain payments or send payments for your products called the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. I recommend that you use it, explore which banks in your country have signed up and use that for your advantage. So, Bertha, I'm not done, but just need to break here. What are the key questions to ask when you are doing exports under the AfCFTA? First question, has the country ratified the agreement? If yes, you continue. If no, you don't go to the next step because they are not AfCFTA eligible. If they've ratified, then the second question, have they submitted their tariff offers? And if they've submitted a tariff offers, then you can find out which classification and where your product falls. And then the fourth thing is find out if they have undertaken domestic measures to implement the AfCFTA. Now, I need to say this because many countries have ratified, many countries have submitted tariff offers. But beyond that, there are customs officials, there are trading platforms, which is single window platforms, and other processes at the national level to implement the AfCFTA are yet to be undertaken. So it's not a given that when they've ratified and they've submitted their offers, they can receive your products under the AfCFTA. You need to do that due diligence. Bertha, I thought that I should give, sorry?
Go ahead, go ahead. I'll just follow up with a question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So since we're looking at maximizing the AfCFTA,
so let me stop you. Sorry, Reverend. Let me just stop you and allow you to actually respond to, in reference to point number 4 of your last slide. And there's a question here from Kigali, from John, which says, what role of private sector, what is the role, maybe, if I'm to rephrase it, of private sector to push policy workers more on making this agreement beneficial? So let me just try really saying that to you again. What is the role of the private sector to push policymakers work more on making this agreement beneficial? Because I think your last point on the last slide, especially the last slide, would assist to answer this question of what is it that we can do on the ground? Because even if our country is ratified and there are not yet enough platforms or an existing office or particular individual can assist us.
Well, I'll say that the private sector is the institution or are the group of institutions, business that are going to benefit from the agreement. The agreement is negotiated usually by public sector officials, government officials. The private sector's role is to monitor the process, is to make inputs into the kind of negotiation positions that governments take. What do I mean by that? For example, if your country is good at, let's say, producing something, I think the last time I used Lesotho, let me use them again. So let's say Lesotho is good in leather, and leather is one of their main exports. The Leather Association and actors in Lesotho should be interested and be advising the government on the kind of position they should take when they go negotiating. And of course, they should also be willing to be a sounding board for the government. The government official may come and say, look, I'm going to negotiate, I need inputs. Some private sector institutions may not respond. They may not be able to make such inputs, but I really recommend that. The third thing is that at the national level, once your country has ratified, please advocate, 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 advocate. Put out evidence, put out information through all platforms that you can to stimulate discussion and interest in intra-Africa trade. I am surprisingly learning every day that African businesses, unfortunately, many SMEs are looking domestic. They're looking domestic, they're only interested in their domestic markets. But this is a big market opportunity being opened. So please begin to think beyond your borders. That will be my response for that.
Good. Good. So I think that answers Mishek's question. How does it work for small-scale traders who are largely informal? I think you've also touched on what the question from Wimbai.
Well, so the AfCFTA can work for small and medium enterprises, first, if those small and medium enterprises can directly engage in international trade. So that's the first one. If they can't, then they have to work with others. So there are many ways you can be a supplier to somebody who's already exporting. You can piggyback. You can, you know, like I mentioned, be part of the value chain of a particular product. Because let's not forget, to be an export-ready business is a whole new ballgame. I'm sure we can talk about that sometime later. But there's a whole lot of resources and commitment that comes on a business when you decide to engage in international trade. And many SMEs cannot do that. But you can form a cooperative, you can come together and leverage on your resource to be able to take advantage of that. Sorry, Betha. Hello, Betha.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So you know, just move on. We've got 20 minutes left. So I just want you to you've touched on the leather sector in Lesotho, and I've got questions here from Angela and Danmo in
I'm losing you. I'm losing you, Betha.
And they're talking about the exporting of meat products.
Sorry, I'm losing you, Betha. I don't know if I'm the only person with that problem, but I can't hear you well. Maybe I can look at the chat box and see if I can see the question and respond to it, if that is okay.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Well, yes, I can hear you. No, you are muted.
I was going to ask you to touch on the, you touched on the leather in Lesotho. I just wanted you to touch more on questions from Angela and Danmo on exporting meat products. Any advice there? And also,
well, if you're looking at exporting meat products, yes, if you're looking at exporting meat products, remember the things I mentioned. Number one, has the country ratified? Number two, where is your product when it comes to the schedule? Is it an A product to the country? So for example, if you are, I'm assuming without verifying, but let's say you're exporting meat products to Kenya. I'm assuming that they have a large meat industry. So perhaps meat will not be a product that would enjoy preferential duties to such a country, just saying without any verification. So, but beyond the tariffs, what I mentioned is that you need to be focused on the non-tariff measures that apply. So the meat product, how it is transported, how it is packaged, the cold chain to deliver the product across the border. You need to look at the permits, the phytosanitary permits you need within your country, and the phytosanitary permits you need in the destination country. So those are the key things I recommend you look at.
Okay, so I think I'll let you carry on, and then we use the last 10 minutes for more questions.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah.
So here I'm putting forward some sectors, some studies that have been done that you know, provide opportunities that I would like to recommend that entrepreneurs look at, because we're talking about maximizing opportunities here. So yes, manufacturing is certainly one of the key sectors that is expected to be boosted by the AfCFTA. Africa doesn't have a large manufacturing sector, but we expect that because of open markets, there's going to be a huge demand for manufactured goods on the continent. And given the rules of origin, that will be a great one. Services sector, also another one. So services sector, as we are aware, 5 sectors have been liberalized for trade. We're talking about ICT, business services. We're talking about financial services, transport and tourism. Transport and tourism sectors as the 5 sectors that have been liberalized. what we said the last time was that these are sectors based on which you can export your services. So if you're a lawyer based out of Uganda and you want to provide your services in, let's say, Nigeria, the possibility is there. The key thing for services is for you to understand the qualifications, the means by which you can practice. So yes, I'm saying you can practice law if you're based in Nigeria, practice law in Kenya, or practice law in perhaps common law countries, but you may need to get some local certification to be able to practice in those countries. So please explore that. Or you can work in partnership with some law firms. You can sit in your country and provide a service across the border. So service is a big one. Agriculture, yes, we have an increasing population, rapid urbanization. There's a lot of food that will be consumed. Our food industry or food sector is set to reach $1 trillion by 2030. And so that is a sector. So if you're involved in any type of agribusiness venture, the opportunity is there. I know there are inherent challenges in agribusiness, but please keep hope alive and make sure that you keep producing and innovating. Then digital trade expected to steer, trade on the continent, across the board. So B2B platform, B2C platforms, B2G platforms, these are all opportunities that exist for small businesses, medium businesses to be able to undertake that. Yes, let me talk about cultural and creative industry. That is a big one. Africa, even though we play a relatively small role in these in the cultural and creative industries, is still a big industry. We're talking about traditional and cultural expressions, cultural sites, visual arts, publishing and printed media. So those of us who are authors, who write books, those of us involved in performing arts, music, in audiovisuals, new media, creative services, sports and recreation, the AfCFTA provides an opportunity for you. Make sure you expand and utilize your creatives across the board. Of course, don't forget that with most of these things, we're talking about intellectual property protection, which is very, very important for you to protect. Now, let's talk about, for me, what I call frontier sectors. So some of these sectors are not clearly disciplined or spelled out in the AfCFTA, but there are opportunities for them through the expanded trade opportunity, expanded trade that will come from the AfCFTA. Number one is waste management and recycling. Africa has a problem with waste management, and that problem is an opportunity. The market for waste is set to grow from 20.6 billion this year to 26.3 billion. It's a small one. Of course, you'll be asking, how can I trade or do this cross-border? A lot of opportunities. Those businesses that are involved in scrap, that is a business opportunity. Those involved in e-waste recycling, that is a business opportunity. In West Africa, we have countries that people collect a lot of waste, especially copper wires, used computers, dispose of certain parts properly, and are able to generate important metals that they export, and that go into creating conductors and electric cables and things like that. So that is an opportunity. Renewable energy, big one. 50% of our population on the continent does not have access to electricity. I know governments are pushing for a lot of on-grid, trying to extend electricity through several ways, but renewable energy and clean technologies are very, very, very great opportunities for us. I'm talking about meetings, incentives, conferences, and entertainment opportunities, as well as ecotourism. These are big opportunities. Now you see a lot of people moving. We're all moving because of AfCFTA and other Pan-African initiatives. We're traveling here and there. These are opportunities. So you could have a hotel, you could have a guest house that you could work on, publicize, and upgrade to be able to utilize, of course, using some platforms that can promote your venue or your country as a meeting and conferencing destination would be a great one. Transport and logistics, very important. How are we going to be able to move goods amongst ourselves? We need logistics service providers, logistics companies, not just at the inter-country level, but even within the country. Small parcels delivery, postal services. These are critical for intra-Africa trade to go on. So some of these are enablers. They'll be very important. Then last but not the least, ICT, cybersecurity, clean technologies as drivers and opportunities for AfCFTA when it comes to entrepreneurs. Because we are increasingly leapfrogging and digitizing Africa in almost every sector, there's a need for also increase in cybersecurity services, cybersecurity personnel, ICT personnel to help businesses to be able to address cybersecurity issues. So what is my conclusion? Entrepreneurs need to utilize every opportunity to identify markets in other African countries and seize them. The AfCFTA will only materialize to businesses and countries that appear to take advantage of that prepare. So please, I know some countries are not ready. I know there are issues or a few snags with some of the AfCFTA implementation, but it will only be for those who prepare. The first movers would be the ones to break through. So please give yourself some short, medium, long-term goals to identify markets, their potentials, and work gradually at exploiting those market opportunities. And I'll quote Dr. Francis Mangeni of the AfC Secretariat when he presented the AfCFTA at the last SACU information exchange event. He said the AfCFTA is ready. Utilize it, trade and invest across the African continent. Thank you very much. Over to you, Bertha.
Let me thank you so much for that. We thank you so much for that insightful and informative presentation, and as you can see, his contact details. So I'll just jump into the questions that we have in our chat box here, thanking everyone who has sent. I will jump into, I think the first one from Anonymous, which is about the AfCFTA, talking about considering manufactured goods. I think we've covered that intensively. Do we have an agreement? I think that has been covered. And yeah, so let's move on to the next question from Umberto. Truly, are there agreements in progress or in perspective between AfCFTA and other international agreements, mutual agreements? That's Umberto from Rome.
Well, so at this point, the AfCFTA, of course, is a WTO plus agreement. To my mind, there is no there is no agreement between the AfCFTA working with, let's say, the EU per se in terms of a bilateral agreement. The AfCFTA is still new, it's emerging, it's evolving. I'm sure the policymakers will want to give it some time to run before it is they look at other bilateral or multilateral agreements with other continents or other parts of the world.
Okay, so I think, you know, we had a question on it's I think the difference, they say difference, but if they can allow me to say, how will this enable us to take advantage of WTO, that's World Trade? I mean, how does this place us when it comes to WTO? That's another question that was asked earlier on.
Well, the WTO exists for all countries in the world. The AfCFTA exists for African countries that will ratify. So in terms of how the AfCFTA will help us with WTO, perhaps it's rather that the WTO framework has been the basis on which we've been able to develop and agree on the AfCFTA. So it's rather not the other way around. It's rather the WTO helping us, of course, because of the existing body of knowledge agreements and templates and other things, we've been able to make a better continental agreement than the WTO.
Great. So I've got a question here from Ethiopia. What is your opinion on the idea of exchanging a single unit of common currency for a well-executed and strengthened trade between African nations? And I think so what is your opinion of the idea of exchanging a single unit of common currency? And I think that will also just answer the questions of people who are worried about volatile economies and where inflationary economies and issues to do with being heavily taxed. I think we talked about so basically currency issues. I mean, I was watching our professor talking about the 33 currencies in our continent. So how do we address that?
Well, I mean, the ideal situation would have been to go for a single currency. But like I mentioned in the beginning, we have just established a free trade area. A free trade area would typically not have a single currency on the agenda, because to achieve that requires a lot of things to align. You've mentioned some of them, the macroeconomic, the fiscal issues, all of that inflation must all align. At this point, it's too early. I am pragmatic. I like what the Secretariat has done or the African Union has done. We have a mechanism now that helps us to pay for services amongst us, goods and services amongst ourselves in direct exchange. So instead of using the dollar as a medium of exchange, now I can pay from in Ghana cedis, and somebody in Malawi will receive it in Malawi kwacha, for example. So that should be that should suffice for now. But it's certainly a good idea, and when we get there, I'm sure we would be able to cross it, because at this point it's too early in the process.
Okay. So Lucy talked about the waste management services, and she's based in Nairobi, and I think your last two slides covered extensively on the opportunities in the waste management. So we can move on to the last question from Kumbi, which is there an online database that houses the protocols, and how can one have access? I think you covered it a bit, but maybe just to repeat it.
Yes, please visit the AU website as well as the AfCFTA Secretariat website. If you visit the AU website or the AfCFTA Secretariat website, there are tons of information you can access and digest to help you understand the agreement and how it's been implemented.
Okay, lastest one from Umberto again. Has the Africa AfCFTA taken into account the problems encountered in the EU free trade area in order to avoid recurrence?
Well, to a large degree, I would say so. Of course, we are all interconnected. Africa and EU, even though we are different continents, we still trade with each other. I rather think that there's a lot more we can learn from the EU than what to avoid, because the EU has quite advanced in their integration than Africa has done, even though we probably started some aspects much earlier. So there's a lot to learn from the EU, even though they also don't have the best system, but we can still learn from them. So that'll be my response.
Great. And I think our last question, which I will answer, is Emmanuel saying, please, is there, but you can answer this yourself in case Africa Trade Academy has a common platform to notify the entrepreneurs to know the market needs of various African countries. Do you have one, a common platform that entrepreneurs can know about market needs?
Yes, it would be a platform called the Africa Trade Observatory. The website will be just Google Africa Trade Observatory. Is a platform that you can use to analyze markets. For example, if you know the HS code or the products you're looking for, you can identify a market you intend to export to and conduct a search. It'll give you, for example, between the top 5 and top 10 importing or exporting countries for that product, and what are the duties applicable, as well as other requirements you need to know. But yes, that will be what the system will give you. Remember, I said do your due diligence before you export.
So you said the Africa Trade Observatory.
Exactly.
Right. Yes. Now, thank you so much. As the E4Impact, we have also launched our B2B platform, which we're very excited about to share in partnership with Africa Trade Area, to share more information on availability of information to access for our alumni. And I think you can contact anyone in our offices. Like we said, go into all our social media and you'll be able to find the country office in your country. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to an end of our webinar. And once again, we thank you, Reverend, for creating time once again. He has shared his contact details, and we can carry on. We are free to contact us at the E4Impact Foundation. We can continue forwarding questions to and fro from Africa Trade Academy. We thank you once again for joining us this evening from wherever you are. Go to these platforms, learn more, keep pushing, and let's be the beacon of hope that we intend to be, and create those that platform to trade. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. But before leaving us, maybe we can launch the final poll.
Okay, yes. Let's do the final poll.
Here you are.
Are you interested in our MBA? Please. This is an MBA that allows you to be an impact entrepreneur. Let's all share our thoughts. Are you interested in our MBA? And we have 71% saying yes. So please feel free to contact us on our platforms and join the next cohort of our MBA in our 20 African Alliance partners that we are working with, and allow yourself to grow your business with impact economically, socially, and environmentally. We're done. I think we're done here. Thank you so much once again for joining us, and we hope to continue bringing you more and more exciting topics that help the entrepreneurship ecosystem grow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.